So, if you expect to read conspiracy stuff involving UFO sightings, then you are going to be really disappointed with this book. Hello, welcome to another book talk, and this time I want to talk about this book, UFO In Her Eyes by Xiaolu Guo. UFO In Her Eyes by Xiaolu Guo is the second book that I finished for the 2020 Asian Readathon. I still have 2 books left. I'm reading both of them right now. Anyway, I just finished this week. It's a pretty light read. It's a short book, and I was able to finish it fairly quickly, so that was satisfying. Overall, I gave this book 4 stars. It was okay. It was not bad enough to be average, but it was not good enough to be, oh my gosh, amazing. So, Xiaolu Guo is a British Chinese author, and this book was published in 2009 in English. And I think that's gonna be kind of interesting, at least for me, because that actually affected how I read this book. And I'm not sure, I'm just gonna talk about that later. But first, a little bit about this book. So somewhere in rural China, there is a village called Silver Hill, and one day a villager called Kwok Yun, who is an unmarried single woman in her 30s. So one day she saw this UFO thingy in her village while she was walking around chilling, and she freaked out. So soon after, she fainted. After she gained consciousness, she saw a white guy somewhere lying around injured, and his legs just got bitten, and she took the guy to her house, and while she was about to give the guy some tea, the guy just went missing, and no one really knows what is going on with this UFO thing or the guy. Even Kwok Yun doesn't really know about all those things. But what she did was she went to her village chief, Chief Chang, and just reported all of the things that she saw that day. And Chief Chang reported the whole event to the local government, and the government sent 2 police officer agents to investigate the matter at the village. And so most of the things in this book are actually a series of interrogations and interviews conducted by these 2 police officers in the first part. In the second part, it will be some interviews conducted by, I think it was finance officers, human development officer, I think. And the third part of this book would be a series of interviews conducted by 2 police officers. One who was actually from the first part of this book, and another one who's a new guy. So soon after, the chief informed the local government about this matter. After they sent 2 police officers to just kind of interview the villagers and just pretty much check what is going on, one day this white guy who got saved during the incident by Kwok Yun sent the villagers a letter and attached with it a $2,000 check, and the villagers were of course very excited to receive such money because their lives in the village were not exactly great, and so they were so happy to receive the money. They informed the local government about this monetary gift that they received, and the local government in turn gave them more money in order for them to just develop the village, because this village has been so kind to help an outsider and stuff like that. And with all of this money, of course the villagers were happy. Initially, the village chief, Chief Chang, would become the person who kind of like spearhead the development of the village, and she would introduce new things to build in the village, shops, roads, infrastructures, and whatnot. And at first, everyone was happy because of all these modern introductions to the village. But as time passed, some of the villagers started to get kind of suspicious, kind of paranoid, distrustful and unsatisfied by the fact that all of these modern things are coming to the village in such fast pace, and things kind of went downward from there. And yeah, that is what the book is about. It's not about the UFO sighting. In fact, the UFO is just a plot device in this book. So yeah, it's not about UFO, but it's mostly about how a village, an initially poor village, reacts when it finally receives like some sort of help and development, and how it reacts to that, before and after, and all of the irony that is attached to that. So it's interesting if you want to see story about, the people and how they react to change, but it's not interesting if you are, expecting a storyline that involves where the UFO is coming from, who is that guy, because really at the end of the book we're still not sure what that UFO stuff is. I mean, there's even an appendix in this book that kind of includes, this UFO sighting in this village as a real thing, kind of makes it a metafiction of some sort. And it says there that the UFO sighting that involves this village is something unresolved. So we still don't know what's going on with the UFO, but we definitely see the story which involves the villagers in this book. In terms of my reading experience, I would say that this book was okay. And that's why I gave it 4 stars, because I did find the writing to be kind of funny, and I like dialogues. And this book mostly comprises of dialogues, which makes it kind of fun, a bit more lively to me. Along the same vein, because this book is mostly dialogues, I also find it a little bit weird, especially on how some of the dialogues are written. Somehow it feels like the way they talk is a bit unnatural. They don't sound like someone who is native English speaker, but you don't also feel like they are someone who sound like an actual person from China. Sometimes when you read a translated work about a person from another country, you can still feel that that person is from that country based on the dialogue that was written, even though the dialogue is written, or translated into English or some other language that you could understand. But still, you would be able to feel that that person is actually from that particular setting, and you are able to place yourself beside that person in that setting, which I think is great. But for this one, I just find it a little bit interesting because this book was originally written in English, and when I read the dialogues, I can't exactly place myself or the characters in the setting where they are supposed to be, which is rural China, a Chinese village somewhere in the middle of China. I'm not exactly sure why. Upon reflection, I figured that there's one thing that I noticed. I noticed that a lot of the proper nouns in this book are translated into English. That is, the proper nouns are not expressed in transliterated Chinese, rather than instead they are being translated into English directly. So every time you hear about the name of the village, you know of the village as Silver Hill. And maybe that's why it's kind of weird to imagine this place, the place that is supposedly found somewhere in the middle of China, and it has the name of Silver Wind, because I'm not sure about you, but I think that if the village name would have been written as a transliterated Chinese, it would sound less weird, and it wouldn't accentuate the exoticness of the name. If you see a village that goes by the name of Silver Hill, or I think I remembered one example from the book I read a few months ago. That was The Girl Who Played Go. The town was called a city of 1,000 wind. When you do it like that, it kind of makes those places, those locales, sound much more exotic, very foreign, very different, and you feel like those places are not something found in this world. It's just difficult to put yourself into that place, if you know what I mean. So I would rather if writers or translators actually use the name of the place in their original language, because that would make it more authentic, more honest, and less weird, more natural. Also, I do think that this book is it has the potential to be something that is a little bit more fleshed out, something heavy, but instead you have something that is light. Now, I don't mind if it's light, because light reading gives a different experience compared to heavy readings, and essentially you get different kind of experiences from all those, and I could appreciate those. It's fine by me. I do think that this book touches upon a lot of themes that concerns with human conditions, economy, politics, all of those crazy things. It could have expanded on those many themes in this book, and I think that would probably make this book a little bit more interesting. Just give it a little bit more substance, a little bit more content, make it slightly thicker, just to explore all of those themes. And another thing that I would like to highlight about this book is that the ending felt a bit rushed. And I don't know, for me personally, I would love to see more things happening at the ending. It felt like, you're just reading this book and you're just, as a reader, you're having fun with the funny writing, humorous writing. But somehow you realize that when you get towards the end, it felt like the story has not ended, but there are only a few pages left at the end. It felt kind of suspicious, and when you finally got to the end of the page, it felt like it ended abruptly, and that part was not really satisfying. And coming from someone like me, who enjoys being at the end of the book, being at the end of this book just did not give me that kind of satisfaction that I want, because it just ended so fast, so sudden, and it felt like the things are not really resolved properly for the characters. It felt like the characters are just there, they just exist in this book, and the plot just exists in this book. The whole thing, the ending, just came out of nowhere. It just stopped like that, as if this book was just got chopped, and that's it. The rest of the story is not explored anymore. These are just some of the thoughts that I have about this book. Overall, it's nice. It's a pleasurable read in a way, but it has its own shortcomings that I think, if these items that I've mentioned were done slightly differently, were approached slightly differently, then it might have made this book even richer. So that's it for now with UFO in Her Eyes by Xiaolu Guo. Until then, I'll see you. Bye.